Jason Lettleman.
You know what I'm thinking?
Yeah.
The other night after the Rubens.
Yeah.
So, like, how you just had like one sip. Like, so we got that free frozen Coke.
Yeah.
And you just had one sip. Like, so he's like super tired. Like,
A little bit shitty.
Mental exhaustion. Like,
Social,
you've
mental
kind of
battery's
tapped out socially,
Yeah.
right?
Battery's out.
I was driving, but I tapped out.
Got this free frozen Coke. Has one sip and you're just like buzzing again. Like, you're like,
The sugar hit me like a truck, man. It was so good.
And then you crashed really hard.
Yeah, we got like about 30 seconds down the road and I was back. I think I went down further than what we did before.
Oh, no, it's like,
it was not a good idea. So, yes, don't feed the gremlins after midnight.
That is probably the oldest reference I've ever heard you throw out.
Yeah, I know a couple. It's not a big deal.
I didn't even catch that one.
Yeah. It's alright. I'll show you later.
Tell me.
Yeah.
Since
So
Cool.
we're back. We're doing something that so many people have requested that we bring back after so long. Mental models.
Probably
I know you guys love them.
one of our highest performing episodes. And it's just
3 mental models
that's
served up
great.
to you on a platter.
That's great. And what are these mental models, Brody?
So, like today, what are we talking about? You mean
No, what are they in general? Just in case no one's
So,
listened.
Yeah.
For anyone that hasn't listened before, mental models are basically sort of concepts to sort of understand different parts of the world a lot easier.
Just hack your brain.
Yeah, so we're sort of talking about them in a way to sort of elevate your thinking in that case.
They're kind of really niche little examples for things that would happen in everyday life that you're probably not going to remember all of them and use all of them. But if there's, a certain thing that you're going through currently in your life, there's probably a mental model for it to help you work through it.
It's really interesting because like trying to figure out what we hadn't done yet.
So many.
Well, I know there's so many, but I
yeah.
didn't want to like cover one that we'd already talked about because we hadn't done it in so long.
My thing is I just read through all of them and then pretty much whatever one I'm either currently having, is interacting with my life. I'm like, yeah, that's interesting. I think
That's how I think that's how I go about it too.
Yeah.
Exactly, because you can read through them and there'll be like articles with like hundreds of them just listed out.
Yeah.
But then like there's certain ones that you're like, okay, I'm actually
Gonna talk
like have
about
like
this.
a relevant experience with that. So
I'm going to bring it back.
Yeah.
so who wants to start?
Ben, take it away.
Oh,
Sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah, you're still researching yours, I
well,
assume.
we always
Yeah.
start strong, and then while the listener's still
tails
listening,
off.
and then it kind of just grates to get over to me.
Sure. Okay. Mental models. So this is an example of a mental model. So it's called Parkinson's law. So Parkinson's law states that work expands so as to fill the time available for its completion. So in simpler terms, when you allocate more time to complete a task, that task tends to become more complex and time consuming than necessary.
Interesting.
So if you probably the common example is when you're at high school, you were given a term to write an assignment, right?
Yeah.
We all wrote that assignment in the last week before it was due.
Yeah.
And miraculously, everything always got done. Or if you have a task at work that you know you have to do, you have a deadline, you're set a deadline, you may think, I'll never get it done. But you always get it done in the allotted time as if by magic. It's because of this concept called Parkinson's law where our brain is defaulting to go, I have 7 days to do this. I know I have this many hours. You'll just bum around for a lot of it and magically get it done. But you could probably do that 7-day deadline in 2 days if you really put your time to it. So really cool concept. I'm sure it resonates with, it resonates with me at work. And the ways around it, in terms of the actual real life applications to counteract it, consider setting self-imposed deadlines or using techniques like time boxing.
Yeah.
I was going to say that.
So if the boss is saying, hey, you have a week to hand this in, you're telling yourself, I have 2 days to complete this, and then it will get done.
100%. I feel like that's been such a big turning point in terms of like getting more things done within my own business during the workday. It's actually just time boxing the week ahead.
Right.
And making those specific time like blocks for every single sort of activity that you know you need to do.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like if you're just sitting there and you're like, I need to do X, Y, Z today, and then it just like runs over time and you've now spent 3 hours doing something that should have been 1 hour.
Yes.
When I first came out into working, I really struggled with that because like I was working off billable hours, which is just a concept you don't really, step across until you get into consulting. And it's always been like I would complete the work in my own time frame and my own timeline. But when you actually have to allot a certain, value of time to something, it's when you really have to learn, like, this has to be done by a certain time. And you look at that on a small scale where you've break down large tasks into something where it might take half an hour, 2 hours. But then when you've got, a package or a piece of work or a project that has to go for a week and you have to break down each bit of time that goes into that, that's when you really have to start learning that skill.
Yeah.
So I think, that's really, really interesting.
I can only imagine how difficult it is for you, Brody, as a self-employed small business owner. You don't have the boss breathing down your neck. You are your own boss and trying to keep accountable to yourself. Do you, so you said you time box. Do you have any productivity apps that you do to that, or do you just utilize Outlook or?
Yeah. Shout out to Opal as well. That's a really good sort of it blocks off key apps on your phone, so you're not sort of looking at say social media, for example. That's very useful just for staying focused. I think the thing with time boxing as well is that's probably one of the best strategies to figure out how you get more done within your day.
Yeah.
But also then you need to sort of balance that with having a realistic expectation of how long things take.
Yeah.
Because I know for myself, I've definitely blocked time out for things. And it's this will take me an hour. And I'm like, oh, snap. Now I'm in it. And it's this is actually going to take a little bit extra time.
Okay.
So again, balancing it as well, getting a better understanding.
Out.
Yeah.
The unexpected changes come through, bumps in the road where you do have to adjust that.
Yeah, and taking those breaks, that's been a big one for me. It's actually probably taking the time as well, blocking out things making time to get up, get outside, I don't know, have some water, eat properly. That's a big one.
That's it for you.
Yeah, it's like the old saying goes, if you want something done, give it to a busy person.
Yeah.
Because the person that has the time on paper that goes, oh, well, I'll give it to them because I think they have the time.
Yeah.
They will enact Parkinson's law and they will fill the task to expand the time that they have.
Yeah.
And if you're a busy person and you have no time, give the task to them when you, not great if you're if you're the employee and I'm speaking as the business owner right now. But it's so true because last year I was taking on way too many projects and I wore too many hats.
Yeah.
And people were like, how are you doing all these things? I see your name pop up everywhere. I see your face.
Still are. You've just changed the projects.
Maybe. I know I've definitely said no to projects this year compared to last year. But that's the thing. I was a busier person than I was last year. Yeah. And I somehow managed to do everything because I knew that, my allotted time is almost non-existent. So I will just get the things done. So I think it's better to be busy than I suppose plateauing. Time boxing and Parkinson's law.
I think
mental models.
There's such a perfect middle ground between where you're not too busy but not quite enough. There's just a sweet spot between you've still got that a little bit of stress to get shit done, but you're not overloaded. And I think if you can kind of find that little equilibrium of where you've got a pretty healthy workload coming through, but you've still got deadlines that are on the verge of meeting, is that sweet spot. Because you never want to be the thing where you having to do heaps of overtime, you're overworked, overloaded, overstressed. But then also if you have too little on your plate, you're kind of how can I stretch this off? Make it last in a day. So I think there's always that nice balance between the two of them.
So just be really conscious to make yourself a little bit uncomfortable at work, because then that's at least, I think, a step in the right direction to go, I'm being a bit more productive. I'm putting myself outside of my comfort zone, and I know that I have a week to get this report done, but why don't I just time box myself and say, I have 2 days and let's just see what happens and test it out. And if you go over the 2 days and it runs to 3 days, hey, well, it's better than the 7-day timeline, you know? So put a bit of pressure on yourself.
Just half all your deadlines.
Okay, that'll. I don't know how to.
You're setting the challenge for yourself.
Average Joe would do it in 7 days. I'll do it in 2.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Anyway, that's Parkinson's law model.
It's a good one to start with.
Yeah.
All right, so the second one that I've got for today, the second mental model is the Pareto Principle, otherwise known as the 80-20 principle. So have you guys heard of that principle before?
Yes.
Yes, it's is it the 20% of your out?
Yeah, so 80% of your results come from 20% of the actions that you take.
Yeah.
So again, this has been probably run to death in terms of different areas of business, self-development and things like that. But I think it's still a really great concept to sort of keep at the top of your mind. And it probably ties in really well with what you just talked about, Ben.
Yeah.
So in terms of different areas of your life, thinking about how 80% of your results can come from 20% of the actions, we're all doing different things, whether it's work or like physical exercise or like trying to take care of our health, even just like hanging out with friends or like mental health that we've talked about. Thinking about what is the key activities that are actually having the biggest outcomes on the outcome that you want. So I know for my business, like there's certain activities like around actually getting work to contractors, actually making time to like go over finances, making those client meetings and things like that, which are actually moving the needle forward rather than sort of like busy work such as like checking emails and things like that.
Yeah.
And very similar again, like it might be in say physical exercise, like in the gym, you might have 80% of your results coming from 20% of the activities, which might be like say your compound lifts or something rather than just working on say your calves or something like that.
That needs work.
So do you guys sort of like think about that concept, or have you used it, applied it in any sort of way within your own lives?
Yeah, really interesting. When I first came across it, when you've spoke about it in the past, I've only put it into like a work context of when you're bringing it up into health and just those other areas. Like any mental model, it obviously applies to more than one area. So I think it's really interesting from those perspectives as well too.
Yeah.
Are you referring to the types of tasks, not the percentage completion of tasks?
Yeah. I think you could look at it in both ways. So I'm thinking, well, I guess you could take it in both ways. That's a really great place to sort of think about it too, because the way that I've sort of looked at it is like within what you have to do each day, there's probably a certain percentage of tasks that probably lead to the outcomes that you want.
Yeah.
But I think it could be applied to anything. Like, I mean, you see examples of people talking about like 80% of your revenue comes from like
20% of your clients. Yeah, that's how it works for our business.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's a problem. But it's a problem that a lot of businesses have with client bases, is that you now have this gigantic tail of 80% of clients bringing in 20% of revenue when you've got, and then if you lose one of those 20% of clients that are bringing in 80% revenue, then the business model is in trouble because you can't afford to lose one of those 20 clients because then, you know, a big chunk of your revenue is disappearing.
Yeah, 100%.
Interesting.
Well,
I was thinking, connecting back to Ben's.
Yeah.
If you set a self-imposed deadline and you only get the task 80% complete, is that the Pareto Principle? Because I know myself that I can spend a lot of time fussing over the last details of a task that lasts 20%.
Yeah.
But is that not the right interpretation, or a different interpretation?
That's a different interpretation of it, but it's an interesting point. To link it. I don't know, man.
I guess like, if you're tying it into the activities that you're trying to take as well, again, time boxing what you're actually doing in terms of Parkinson's law, you're obviously going to have to try and dedicate more time to the things that are actually going to move the needle forward.
Yeah.
I think that's how I tend to look at it.
Yeah.
And again, like I know for myself, like in the morning, like actually getting up, getting some sort of like exercise, whether it is like a walk or something, makes me feel more set up for the day.
Yeah.
And also like something as simple as like just having something small to eat, like gives me the energy to start
What you need.
like what I need to do. So like those might be the activities rather than say waking up, having to go through like a full morning routine. What is like the actual
bare necessities
that are going to set me up
successful.
to have that bigger outcome.
I like that.
I like
think that's
that.
really good.
So you're distilling your day down to the top 20% of activities that are going to create, I suppose, 80% of your well-being during that day.
Yeah, exactly.
I suppose another way to look at it.
And I think like just revisiting it for different parts of your life. So for me, it's revisiting for like my business and going through that sort of stuff. But again, it might be at work, it might be in your own personal lives. Again, just thinking about like what is actually moving the needle forward around the goals you're trying to achieve.
Because you can throw a lot of other things into your day that aren't actually providing value.
Yeah.
And there's also could be a lot of other things that you're not doing that could add value.
Yeah.
So I think it's just going back to those tasks and seeing what you're getting the benefit from.
Yeah,
Agreed.
100%.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. And you probably could delegate some of those smaller tasks off.
Yeah.
Like if you're in a middle management leadership sort of position, if you can identify that key 20% of what you need to focus on, that 80% of other tasks could probably be offset, outsourced.
Yeah,
I hadn't
100%.
thought about that. That's really good.
That's so true, because like you think of all the stories of managers who consistently just want to take on, like, have their hands in every single pie of like what's going on, rather than just like allowing themselves to work on what is your actual main job of, or what activity that you need to do.
Beautiful segue.
Oh, great.
So I've got the circle of competence.
Perfect.
So,
Did we tee that up?
that went really well. So this model suggests that we should focus our efforts on the areas where we have knowledge, skills and experience, our circle of competence, rather than venturing outside of our circle of competence, because it can be risky. And while still staying in, it allows us to leverage our strengths to achieve better results. So we operate within the skills that we know and our knowledge and what we're really, really good at. And then once it crosses out into that barrier, that's where we can either learn those new skills or outsource them. So I think it's really, it's quite easy to slip into that thing of trying to have, a bit of a handle on everything, or even within your profession, when you come out quite early trying to generalize, sometimes it's easier to either specialize or be a little bit more niche and just get really, really good at one area or one skill before moving on to the next thing. So there's that in a professional context, or again, like all these we've discussed, can be talking about your physical life, your relationships, instead of trying to be, jack of all trades, master of none, just focusing on one skill at a time, getting really, really good at it, and becoming the specialist or expert in that area. And I think this is where like your ego can really come into play as well too. So thinking that, you can do everything by yourself and you don't need to rely on other people, but that's like the business model of why it's successful, because you've got everyone in that business and they're a specialist in that area. So once it kind of leaves your area of specialty, that's when you pass over and outsource and give it to someone else. Even like on a different perspective, if you've got a team around you and you've either got admin assistants or something, sometimes people hold on to a lot and can blow out your day and a lot of unnecessary tasks. So outsourcing those tasks when they need to be. So I think it can be sometimes difficult finding what your level or what your area of competence is, because you can think it's a lot greater or a lot smaller than what you are. So if you're quite shy, not confident, you might not see that barrier. It might be a lot smaller than what you think it is, or vice versa. You might think you're a lot more educated on a skill or a topic than what you actually are.
Yeah.
So I think finding that balance is that inward kind of reflection and seeing where it sits and what it is. Would you feel like you're pretty comfortable in your circle of competence? You know what you're good at, what you need,
Yes.
where your areas are?
It's funny you bring this up, because I was reading another mental model by Gwinda this morning, and it was actually a mental model that people who know a little bit about one thing then die on that hill because it's what they think that they're good at. And they can't learn any. You have an inability to learn any more about it when you get to a point where you think you're pretty good at it. So if you think you specialize, you get to a point where, well, I'm the specialist, therefore I have nothing else to learn about this concept, which actually makes you worse than the person who doesn't know anything, who has a drive to learn. So you get to a point where you actually have an inability to learn. So I'm interested by this concept of being a specialist because I think in the current day and age, yes, you can have specialists and you can hire them in as contractors. Like if you were talking about the legal profession, you have a specialist in family law or something like that. But I think the train of thought that I'm on, it's going more for that entrepreneurial business owner mentality. And time again, those guys are not specialists in anything.
No. Or the same thing as like a general manager. Like you're not specializing in anything, but you know a little bit about. I think I resonate more with that path of just being a little, like, I'm competent in my field of expertise. I can talk about finance till the cows come home. But where I've changed over the last 12 months is taking the interest in that more entrepreneurial side of things. But the caveat is knowing where the barrier is. So knowing that you're not an expert in that area and you need to learn it. So that, like, taking back to context of a general manager. When you're a general manager of an organization, you have a basic understanding of HR, of finance,
Right.
marketing, the whole spread of things.
Yes.
But you need to know where that point stops, where you say, okay, I know enough of this to understand the answer you give me, but I still need to reach out to be better educated on it. So it's nothing about saying because you're not an expert in that skill, you shouldn't speak on it or you shouldn't pursue it. It's just knowing when you either have to re-educate yourself or educate yourself on it, whether you need to outsource it or whether you need to learn it.
Okay, cool.
So I think, it's just coming back to your own understanding. But it's also good for, like, if you're not super confident within yourself and within your abilities, I think it's quite good to understand where your circle of competence are. Because you'll have a lot of people that won't openly be like, oh, I'm an expert in this, but it's good to know where your strengths are.
I think it comes back to, like, it's one of those concepts where both sides make sense depending on how you look at it.
Yeah.
Because I know for myself, when I got into marketing or digital marketing, for example, I tried to learn, like, all the sort of different key areas, like to understand all the different areas of sort of digital marketing, to have like a full rounded understanding of like how different things work.
Yeah.
But then when I started picking one of those areas, like I went pretty deep on social media marketing first.
Yeah.
And then expanded into like other areas.
Yeah.
So similar to like what you said, like still picking that one area makes it so beneficial to be recognized as like the go-to person in that industry.
Yeah, 100%.
And like it adds so much weight because you can add so much expertise to that that area. But I think also still having the general understanding has helped me in the long run too, because when I was doing, say, just social media marketing, I could also see the bigger picture of like, hey,
where the pieces.
What other pieces do you need, and is social media marketing the right thing for you? Because I see a lot of other sort of digital marketers who might only specialize in, say, like one particular area. It might be, say,
It's too micro.
yeah,
It's
they might be the website person, but then can't see that, like, or like say like advertising or something, running digital ads, but then can't see on the other side that maybe this isn't the best strategy for this particular business, or how other things fit into that strategy.
Yeah.
So it is kind of a mix. And I think, like you said, your circle of competence needs to grow and continue to expand, and figuring out where those gaps are that might actually help you.
I think about it in the context of, obviously, like once you come fresh out of uni, whatever industry that you're in, whether you're an engineer, accountant, people and culture, like whatever it is, there's always areas to specialize. And you know what really frustrated me when I came out was just how steep that learning curve was. So I came out as a HR consultant, so there was all those different areas of HR to learn, but because it was a consulting firm, there was every industry, and regardless of the industry, like the awards, the IR, like all these different things are different and can vary. And it was like the learning curve to be educated and to be general enough in each of them could have been 4 or 5 years. So that's why I took a sidestep and I became an expert or a specialist in recruitment, and then even further niche into hospitality.
100%.
And so then I could give that a really good 12 months and really be confidently hang my hat on that I'm a specialist in that area, and now that I'm feeling comfortable in that area, I could branch out into other things.
But that's also like, I think that similar approach of like how you're learning it at uni. And say in your professional setting, because it's not like you only know about HR for hospitality or anything like that. You still have an understanding of everything as well,
and how everything works.
So you're building it out as you continue to go through your career as well.
But I think it's just really, really, really good to just know where you end and where the next person starts.
Yeah, where you excel. In that case, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
But also when it needs to be handed over to someone else as well.
Yeah, true. So understanding like what's outside and then giving that over to the other person.
So I think it definitely benefits in both sides.
Yeah.
I like your perspective, Brody, from a small business owner, because I was thinking back to when we had Cass on from Kus Culture. And she spoke to how when she started to grow and she had to start to employ other people for help. She still wanted to learn, say, the marketing part enough to be able to have functional, productive conversations with those people. But she's not going to be doing the marketing because she's got so much else on her plate to not have the time for that.
So very similar again, I guess, in terms of the circle of competence. Like understanding a little bit about each of those different areas, but understanding is also like not your competence, and you need to find that person to hand it off to.
100%, yeah, because there's going to get to the point where it's like when you're that small business owner, look, like if you really wanted, you could do your own books, you could do your own marketing, you could do all of that stuff, but you obviously have your time and you also have your expertise. Like I could educate myself to do my own marketing, but that's not what I went into business for. I went in to be an expert on hair products or marketing and be an expert in that area. That's why I'm in business. And then I will have the people around me to excel in those areas.
Yeah.
But again, you still need to know enough about it, because if someone's charging you X amount for a product or service, you need to know what you're actually getting and whether it's whether there's value in that or not.
Yeah.
So
That's a great one to tie it up.
yeah, and it linked them all up really nicely.
It's funny how that happens.
Every single episode.
Every single time. It's
So what
not
are you
like-
doing? You're getting all your list of things to do sorted.
Yeah.
Look at what your circle of competence is and where you can add value.
Yeah.
And then
Shout the rest of it to everyone else.
Yeah.
And then
That's it.
time box.
and then
those
time
tasks.
block those
Boom.
tasks.
Yeah.
You've just hacked life, and that's mental models in a nutshell. Well done, Cam. Good summary,
Thanks,
mate.
bro.
Let me drop the mic. Let me drop it.
Yeah, that was very good. Well, we've conquered life again, lads.
Yeah.
Really well
Just
done.
another Monday.
Just another Monday.
Day's done all
Yeah.
before 11 a.m. So
Yeah, fantastic. And are we going to do any of these things? No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all.
I've got another
But
7 days until
but we
to do
will
something about it.
lecture other people on it.
And thank you for listening.
I think that was one of your previous mental models, right? Solomon's paradox.
Solomon's paradox.
yeah.
Great advice for everybody. Do I take any of it? Not
Nope.
at all. Life
As you
is a
can tell, we
shambles.
definitely apply them since I couldn't remember any of the
Personal life is a shambles. Yeah.
Sorry.
Stop grabbing my shoe.
So this whole episode, Ben and I both wearing Birkenstocks, and I'm raw dogging under the table with my feet footloose, and then I keep trying to find where my Birkenstocks are because they've kind of gone walkabout. I keep feeling Ben's across the table thinking it's mine, trying to pull it over.
Pulling it
and he
off
just
his
pulls
foot.
back.
And I'm pulling it back,
Yeah.
going, why is he
Rather.
stop taking my Birkenstock?
It's like a tug of war over Birkenstocks.
It is
Yeah.
weird. It is
I
weird.
just want to play footsies, but
Yeah,
thank you for
I
listening.
know. Yeah, thanks for listening.
Thanks, guys.
Another episode. Bye.
Bye.
They're over there.